Well, welcome to another episode of OTA on the Air. With me this time is Chancellor Randy Gardner. So thank you for joining us on our show.
Great to be with you. Thank you.
So Chancellor, you and I go back a long way. You go back a long way with our membership, and we've always had a great working relationship. So, but for our listeners who may not know about you, tell us a little bit about your history and how you ended up being the Chancellor.
Well, I'm of the age where I have a lot of history. Thank you for that, and it's really an honor to be a part of this podcast. Certainly, a lot of years in the House and Senate, 33 years in the House and Senate, and working with the Trucking Association. In fact, I missed it wasn't really a reception; it was like an extravaganza. Up in Sylvania, Northwest Ohio. It was kind of the go-to Trucking Association event of the year. And I just love those. What a lot of energy, a lot of business leaders who were coming together to make sure that their elected officials knew how important the trucking industry was, and just the ongoing relationships that the association has built. So certainly a lot of fond memories, but a lot of time in the General Assembly. And legislators aren't going to know what's important in their state and their communities unless they hear directly from employers, directly from business leaders, directly from people who are in the business, on the ground, or in this case, on the pavement, right, on the highways, moving product. So that relationship really was helpful. Kind of the segue to becoming chancellor. Typically, the chancellor doesn't get involved in the trucking industry much per se, but when the General Assembly had legislation to create a CDL program to train more, we're in the business of workforce. We're not just in the business of colleges and universities and ivory towers. We're in the business of helping prepare the workforce and build the economy. That's what education and training, workforce development is all about. So the DeWine administration, first of all, to recognize Mike DeWine and John Husted for strongly supporting this idea. And there were a number of state legislators involved in it. Probably most closely, I worked with Representative Hoops from the Napoleon area. Representative Sebecki is involved. Representative Cross was involved. The Senate leadership was involved. So it really became a bicameral, bipartisan effort, because that's what trucking is. There's not a Republican or Democrat way to drive a truck, I don't think. At least not that I'm aware of. So bottom line is, when this idea came to us, the DeWine, the governor's office, and as chancellor, I report directly to the governor. When I became chancellor, it was based on unilaterally the governor saying, I would like you to serve in my cabinet. In fact, my son asked me how long the term was when I told him I was going to be chancellor, and I said it could be a week, because there's no terms, there's no appeal. That's it. So it's been a little over 3 years. It's been great to serve in the cabinet, but this was something that came to us, and then it became part of the budget bill. But then additional legislation to make sure that we had the rules right and to put this program in place. We worked as quickly as we could. The governor's office said, make this work as quickly as we can. We actually worked over the holidays. My staff might even tell a few stories about, in late December, we wanted to make sure that we could start at the beginning of this year with our RFP to get this out. So if you have additional questions about the program, I'll be glad to answer. But we carried out the directives from the General Assembly to do this program. And really the bottom line for me is, you can't have a strong economy if you're not moving product. I mean, it's one thing to have a manufacturing plant that does something, or a farm that does something, or creates a product, but you cannot effectively have a strong economy unless we're moving product efficiently, as quickly as possible, and with obviously a workforce that can carry that out. So in fact, I wish I had my without trucks America Stops banner in back of me for this podcast because I know that's a strong theme of the trucking industry. But think about it; it's completely true, and we've had some issues in this country. Some of it's still on the water, but once it gets here, you still have this backlog, and you've got to have people ready to move product. So a lot of respect for the trucking industry, but also to make this program then work, because this education and training is part of what we must do as a state. And so glad to do it. I know you have additional questions. But...
Yeah, so you originally had touched on the workforce development piece. I guess talk to us a little bit about the Department of Higher Education and how you as an organization, as an agency, approach workforce development and your role in making sure that Ohio has the strongest workforce it can going into the future.
Really important. And also, I must say, we work with the Department of Public Safety as well, because they're the ones that get involved in these programs as well, and certainly had a list of all those that are qualified to even engage in the CDL grant loan program for CDL drivers. But my attitude about the workforce is this: we shouldn't be parochial about whether it's a career tech program, adult career education program, Ohio Technical Center, community college, four-year public or private university. We should react to the needs of the state and the needs of individual families and students, provide the training, the education, the potential career path that meets their needs and that they're interested in, and that builds a stronger state. So when we think of workforce, we have in Ohio probably the strongest, what I call the diversity of opportunity to be able to train and educate the future. And many of the organizations, some of the community colleges in this state that have CDL programs. In fact, I was on one of the websites for a career tech program. I'll say who it was. It was Apollo in Allen County, and I was at their state conference this a couple of weeks ago, and speaking to them about the need. And CDL came up. CDL was part of the statewide Ohio Technical Center conference because they're part of these grants. They have members who do significant training in CDL. So it's what I love about the job as chancellor is I get to work with doctoral research scientists at universities, and I get to work with adult career technical and training centers on things like CDL and things that in terms of manufacturing. So it's a great variety of activity that we're engaged in. Quite frankly, when I became chancellor, I didn't realize to the extent we were involved in that many things, 166 entities, colleges, universities, and training centers and technical centers. Just really didn't know that all of that was going to be a part of the chancellor's office responsibilities, and it is. And I do want to thank the Department of Public Safety, Director Stickrath, and others from the department who partnered with us to help put this all together and get these RFPs out there, get these proposals back. You might want to talk a little bit about the volume that we're able to do and perhaps not do, because there's going to be we're limited to $5 million over the next 2 years. And we don't know, as I'm speaking to you today, whether that's going to even be enough to meet the need in these training programs, but that's what the General Assembly allocated through the state budget.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about that program. It's a grant and loan program for attendance to truck driving school. The federal government does not allow it right now because of the shortness of the program. But I guess, in your opinion, how does this program differ, and how does it make us a leader in the country when it comes to offering financial assistance for truck driving school?
Yeah, well, and the Trucking Association probably knows this better than I, but I'm told it's one of the few programs like this in the country. And it's a combination grant and loan. And some people have actually raised the question, why a grant and loan? Know that the loan is not just a typical federal loan or a high-priced, expensive loan. If it's paid back, or if someone stays in Ohio and is employed in Ohio, the loan can be forgiven. And the grant aspect of it is also one that is just straight out assistance, grant assistance to be involved in it. So it's not what we think of traditional federal loans. You're right that because these things move pretty quickly, the federal government has a policy against what we call short-term certificates and credentials. That might actually change. There's some action going on right now. You may already know this. Maybe you could educate me.
We're hopeful.
There's some things going on with Pell Grants and other things at the federal level that might provide some additional assistance. But for now, what Governor DeWine said is we can't just wait on those programs. If it happens, it happens. But we could only know what we know now, and we can't wait until the end of this congressional session to know whether we're going to be able to get some additional assistance or flexibility. We've argued, the governor sent letters regarding more flexibility at the federal level for these programs. But quite frankly, the economy is relatively strong in this state, and the revenues are coming in well enough in this state. We had a state budget that was robust enough, and we just couldn't look the trucking industry in the eye. We couldn't look at employers of our trucking firms in the eye and say, we can't do this. Wouldn't have been a fair answer. And so we made this decision collectively to say, no, we should go forward and provide these grants and loans, and let's increase the number of folks who can join the profession and be a part of our state's economy. So that's kind of what all came together. Again, it was the language that was mostly not, I don't want to overcook the department's involvement in this. The legislature made this a priority as well. And most of the language comes from legislation that had actually previously been introduced in the previous session of the General Assembly. So it's not like we were able to do this thing in a matter of a few months. It took, for some people, a little frustrated that it took a little longer, but it became part of the budget process. Even though there was a bill introduced, it became part of the budget process, and we were able to provide them now the $5 million over the next 2 years.
Yeah, I believe it was about 5 years in the making from when we.
Is that right? Well,
this concept 5 or 6, but then that's the process, right? You keep working on it. I guess talk to us a little bit about what the program looks like, how that application process works. And then I'll fold in the next question of, if I'm a general Ohioan who's looking at going to truck driving school, how do I get access to the dollars? Because it's two very, I guess, unique processes that y'all have set up.
Okay, well, there's a 2-year, at least in this budget, and maybe it'll be an ongoing program if the need is there, and it likely will be. If someone's interested in participating in this, wants assistance, this first window is kind of passing us by right now, but we had a process where any of the eligible truck driving schools, private, public, community college, career technical centers, all of them had the ability to do an RFP, to a request for proposal to demonstrate the volume of need they had and to participate in the program. And the strong thing about the trucking industry in the state is there are a lot of training programs out there. There are a lot of participants throughout the state geographically. I think we're pretty well represented throughout the state. And so said they should just contact those training programs, those schools, those colleges that are involved, those career tech programs that are involved, contact them and say, I want to participate in the CDL training program. And then they would, it's not managed by the department. They don't send applications to us. We wanted to make sure that the applications were done on the ground with the experts, with the employers, and with the colleges and the schools who are engaged in the actual training. So that's the process. And it's definitely not Columbus top-down based. It's, we send these applications out throughout the state. And I believe most of the training programs in the state not only are aware of it, but are participating and sending in applicants so that we can begin that training and get them on the road.
Yeah, and there again, I think that's an extremely smart and diligent way to take a look at this, and that you get the paperwork part and out of the way up front, and then the schools can then manage it based on their volume and their ability to train. But I guess talk to us a little bit, because there are some unique restrictions, and you kind of talked a little bit about, you know, the forgiveness of the loan piece, but I guess what are some of the restrictions or catches, if you will, to this program?
Well, yeah, I appreciate it. Let me say one other thing about the Trucking Association, because without the Ohio Trucking Association's grassroots involvement with the General Assembly, the reputation you've developed, the strength that you provided in terms of working with government officials, those things matter. And so that was helpful this time. The endorsement letter that the Ohio Trucking Association provided was helpful. And we actually connected with the association actually during the rule process, just to make sure, you know, I said all along, the one thing you don't want to do in government is think that you've got the answer and go ahead and develop something and not stay in touch with the people who know most about the issue, about the challenges. So I don't know that I can speak to a lot about the restrictions, except that as a college, as a school, a provider is looking at this, just make sure you adhere to, there are certain, for example, there's no one training program, as strong as you may be, that can get more than $200,000 over the course of a given year. We have a little of a cap per training program, but we think it's significant enough that it'll capture most of that activity. The amount of dollars, I think it's $10,000 that can be provided to an applicant, and you go ahead and enhance or amplify anything that I say on this. It's $2.5 million a year, and so what we are watching to make sure that if we get an overabundance of applications, it's possible the association or legislators may want to go back to the halls of the General Assembly, the House and Senate, and say, we could use some additional investment in this program. Quite frankly, if there's not much interest in it, if there's low volume of applications, that might not bode well for the future. So I really hope the association, I'm sure we are, but it really makes sure that we get the best involvement and engagement early on. And that's part of the reason probably for the podcast, right, is to make sure people are fully aware of what's available to them. But I would take a look. We did a webinar on February 4. There was a statewide webinar that was done. I hope people that are watching this were a part of that. And if there are any additional questions, let me just offer this. If there are any additional questions that come from this, or additionally, if the Trucking Association says, we thought the program would work better this way, but we're finding we ought to make this change, we ought to do it a little bit differently in the second year or in subsequent years, we're still open for ideas. The association certainly has my email address, and I'd love to hear directly from either an employer or a college or program or you. Elevate those ideas, those concerns, those suggestions to improve the program. Right now, we think we've got a pretty good one in place. We've worked with the Department of Public Safety, with the legislature, with the Trucking Association, but we can always think of ways to get better and stronger. But that's what pretty much we know today. So it's not completely open-ended on dollars today, but you know we do believe this is going to have an impact on encouraging more people to be able to make this step.
Talk a little bit about the residency requirement that's part of it, of the applicant needs to stay employed in Ohio.
Right. I'm Chancellor of the Ohio Department of Higher Education. The governor is the governor of Ohio. The legislators work for Ohio. So there may be some people that say, well, I may want to, move out of state after a year. I'm having that. So there are some restrictions about the number of years that we stay in Ohio and get that. But there is loan forgiveness. Basically, what we turn the loan essentially into a grant, a second grant. That was done strategically to encourage, and we've done that before. We've done that with nursing programs and physician programs in hard to serve areas. So we thought or I shouldn't say we, the legislators who led this program believed that was a way to incent people from Ohio to serve Ohio. And to provide, to make sure that our companies were as strong as possible. We also want we want to grow our trucking companies in Ohio. We want additional trucking companies perhaps to even come to Ohio to make sure that we employ as many people in the industry as possible. So those restrictions, if you will call them, I guess I prefer to call them incentives, but are part of the program to build Ohio's economy and to make sure that we have trained CDL workforce right here, headquartered in the state.
Okay, final thoughts on how you feel this program will benefit Ohio and will benefit the trucking industry.
Okay, well, again, bottom line, fundamentally, again, you can't strengthen the economy, you can't build an economy without moving product efficiently, effectively, and you need the workforce to do that. And so I think this has the potential to be just really key in building on the momentum that we have in the state. We had an announcement, and there's going to be dozens of additional companies coming into Ohio based on some of the economic news that's come out of Columbus and the state. The Intel announcement, the $20 billion investment, is not just about Intel and Central Ohio. That is a statewide announcement because we're going to have 30 or 40 additional suppliers and businesses come to the state and be a part of our economy. And what's additionally exciting, we have already seen additional companies call Ohio and say, why did Intel choose Ohio? What do they know that we don't know yet? And they're asking questions and they want to come here. This can really build not only the technology and the innovative sectors of Ohio, but the manufacturing sector. It's actually going to have some additional value added for our traditional manufacturing sector, which is going to create even additional need for the trucking industry. So these things just build on one another. We're not good enough. We're not strong enough. We're not, we've got work to do. Anytime, I always said this when I was in the House and Senate, if you've got a legislator or an elected official, in this case, a chancellor who says, we've done enough, we're satisfied, it's time for a new one. So respectfully, I'm not ready for a new governor or a new chancellor. And certainly the legislators want to earn their additional place in the General Assembly. And by doing that, we need to continue to get stronger and better. And that's what I hope this grant loan program can do. I really, on behalf of the governor and the administration and the legislature, just thank the association for encouraging and championing this idea, because I think it's just another key component in making Ohio's economy stronger. So thanks to the association and to all those who do the work in this state.
Well, Chancellor, I'm gonna turn the thank you back on you for taking this on. I know it's kind of outside the realm of what you normally do at the Department of Higher Education, and we appreciate you stepping up to the challenge and making sure that you got the program worked out right, that the rules were right, and that it made sense moving forward. So we very much appreciate that. Chancellor, again, thank you for joining us on OTA on the Air, and appreciate the service that you provide to the state of Ohio and our citizens and to the industry. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you. And thanks to all who have been a part of my career, who have supported and who have helped me as a legislator understand the needs of the industry. It makes me a little bit stronger chancellor to have that background in the General Assembly, and people who are listening to this were a part of that support. And I'll never forget that either. I appreciate that. Thank you.